Okay, the last video, kind of tutorial video in this, has to do with a supplementary activity that we do where we roll 2 dice and then we add the numbers together. And the first part of that is to roll 2 dice and you're gonna add the numbers together and then fill out this table that you have, and you record your answer in the chart below and you make a tick mark in it. Now there's often some mistakes that students will make, so I wanted to demonstrate exactly what those directions mean. So I have here 2 dice, and it helps when they're different colors, okay? And so I have a blue one and I have a pink one, and I'm gonna roll them at the same time and then add the number together. So if I roll them both, I have a 1 and I have a 4. And so I would add those together, get 5, and I'm gonna put a tick mark in that little box that has the 5 in it. And then we roll again, and I have a 2 and a 3. And so those also add up to 5. So now I've got 2 tick marks in my 5 box and nothing anywhere else. Now I have a 6 and a 2, so those add up to 8. And so forth. And it pretty much asks you to do that as many times as you can in 5 minutes. So I put a timer on in the classroom, I give you guys some dice, and you start rolling and adding and generating as many tick marks as you can. Now what's neat about this is that there's actually 2 different ways that you can get certain number combinations. So there are actually 2 ways that you can roll a 4 and a 3. You can get a 4 on the pink die and a 3 on the blue one, or you can get a 3 on the pink die and a 4 on the blue one. So when you're rolling a pair of dice, you might think, oh, I got a 4 and a 3 and there's only one way to get a 4 and a 3. But there's actually 2 ways that you can get a 4 and a 3. And that becomes handy later on in the activity. So I did actually find an online dice rolling simulator that you can use. I'm going to link you guys over to that so that you would be able to do this activity and work out the, I'm scrolling down on the activity, the different probabilities. Please note where it says probability of 10 or 11, that means one or the other or both. It's not asking you what's the probability of rolling a 10 and you have the option as to which question you want to answer. So what you would do is add up all the number of times you got 10 and add to that the number of times you got an 11, add those 2 together, like a 10 or 11, and then put that over your denominator. That's probably the most common mistake students make when they're doing this activity, is not reading that particular question right. If you're not sure where I'm looking at question 4 in it, probability of 10 or 11. So you're going to add up all your 10s and all your 11s and then get that. So it's kind of like if I said, I will give you an A for the year in Algebra 2 if you roll a 10 or an 11. Well, you don't care whether it's a 10 or an 11. You want to make sure you get one or the other. So that's what that is. Number 5 says less than or equal to 4, less than or equal to 4. So make sure you're reading that correctly. And then when you get over to the back, we're using the ordered pairs there to indicate what you're rolling. And so you've got a 1, 2 would indicate, say, a 1 on one die and a 2 on the other. But a 2, 1 indicates the other way around, whatever the other way around would be. So what I just showed you with the 3 and the 4. And so when it asks you how many ways can you roll a 3, there's actually 2 ways you can roll a sum of 3. Yes, you can only have a 1 and a 2, but you can get that 2 different ways. So there are 2 ways to do it. All right, I think that should set you up pretty well. When you get down to question 21, it says in 2 to 5 complete sentences, describe how well your experimental probabilities compare to your theoretical probabilities. Don't make up stuff on that. If your experimental probabilities are way off from what they should have been theoretically, say so. But if they're close, describe how they're close. Describe maybe how close they are in order to answer that question. If you have other questions about this and you're interested in doing the activity at home, you guys know how to reach me. Make sure you're on Remind. Make sure you're posting on the message boards. You know I go live, so you can actually ask your question in real time, and I will hopefully touch base with you all soon.